There are wishes we bury deep inside us, because we know they're too dangerous to ever come true. But what happens when someone else digs them up for us? Yeah. What happens when someone you were supposed to look at with respect, maybe even love, looks back at you with something you never expected? I didn't plan on any of this. I didn't wake up one day and think, let's tear apart everything that still holds a little bit of peace in my life. But life has a way of finding your weakest spot and pressing right on it when you least expect it. And the truth? Sometimes it's not even life. Sometimes, it's a person. A person who sees you in ways no one else does. A person who knows how to speak to the part of you that's been quiet for too long. And sometimes, that person is the one you were never supposed to feel anything for. She was supposed to be my father's salvation. Not the reason I couldn't sleep at night. Not the face that haunted my thoughts in the quiet hours of the morning. Not the woman who made me feel seen again, in a house full of people who walked past me like I was furniture. Let me tell you something honest, this isn't a story I want to tell. It's a story I need to tell. Because keeping it in? That's been eating me alive. And maybe, just maybe, if you've ever felt invisible. If you've ever needed someone to just notice you, even if it was the wrong person. You'll understand how I ended up here. Not proud. Not innocent. But real. It started the way these stories always do, quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that makes the sound of your own heartbeat feel too loud. I moved back home after things went sideways in my relationship. I was broken. Bitter. Tired of pretending I was okay. My dad offered me a room, a roof, a chance to breathe. But he didn't offer me him. He was there, yeah, physically. But emotionally? He was already gone, lost in work, in silence, in whatever world he escapes to when feelings get messy. And she? She was there too. My stepmom. Polished. Poised. Beautiful in that effortless kind of way that makes you forget how to blink. She didn't speak much at first. But when she did, it was like she meant every word. Like she knew how to listen, not just hear. I didn't know how dangerous that was. You ever meet someone who just gets you? Like they can read between your sentences and feel what you're not saying? She had that. And I was starving for it. Not for attention. Not even for love. But for connection, that warm, terrifying feeling that someone actually sees through all the mess and decides to stay anyway. I didn't think it would be her. God knows I didn't want it to be her. But sometimes, when two people are lonely in the same place, lines blur. Boundaries fade. And wishes, well, they stop being imaginary. Before I reveal how my stepmom's secret wish turned into a reality we both couldn't escape, make sure you subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga. This is where we tell the stories no one else dares to say out loud. The ones that show how even the most perfect-looking lives are full of cracks. Now lean in, because it's time to tell you what really happened. And why I still can't decide if I regret it. Or if it was the first time I finally felt alive. You still with me? Good. Because it only gets more complicated from here. I was 26 when I moved back into my father's house. It wasn't supposed to be permanent, just a place to land after everything in my life fell apart. My relationship had ended in flames, I'd lost my job a week later, and every part of me felt like it was sinking. So, with nowhere else to go, I went home. Or, at least, back to the house that used to feel like one. But it wasn't the same anymore. Everything had changed. Dad had remarried. To her. A woman I barely knew, elegant, calm, too composed for the chaos she walked into. She greeted me at the door that first day with a warm smile and eyes that didn't quite match it. There was something behind them. Something soft. And tired. She was in her early 40s, I guessed. Maybe younger. She moved like someone who had practiced grace. Like she was always holding herself together, one polished breath at a time. The way she spoke was gentle, like she never wanted to take up too much space. But she was impossible to ignore. Her name was Naomi. And Naomi. She made everything feel alive, except for my father. He barely spoke. Always behind a laptop, or on his phone. Work calls at dinner, work calls before bed, sometimes even in the middle of the night. When he looked at Naomi, it was like he was scanning a checklist. Never truly seeing her. Just making sure she was still performing the role he'd given her. Perfect wife. Charming hostess. No complaints. I could see the way she wilted when he walked out of a room. She'd hold her smile just a second too long, like she needed time to let it fall apart quietly. The house was beautiful. Modern, quiet, everything in its place. But there was no warmth in it. Just this weird stillness. Like the air was holding its breath. And the smell. Rosemary. She must have cooked with it every day. It filled the halls, stuck to my clothes, crept into my dreams. But beneath it, there was silence. Not peaceful silence. The heavy kind, the kind that wraps around you when everyone's pretending everything is fine. I slept in the guest room. She made it up for me with fresh sheets, folded towels, a glass of water on the nightstand. I hadn't asked for any of that. But she did it anyway. Said, "You've been through enough. Let this be a soft place to land." No one had said something like that to me in a long time. And I don't think anyone had said something like that to her in even longer. We started crossing paths more. Early mornings in the kitchen. Late nights in the hallway. Small talk at first. Then longer conversations. About nothing. And then, about everything. I told her how my ex had left. How I wasn't even sure what I'd done wrong. She listened. Not the polite kind of listening. Real listening, the kind that makes you feel like your words have weight again. She told me she'd once dreamed of being a writer. Before she married my father. Before she became someone who smiled through silence. There was a sadness in her stories. Not dramatic. Just, honest. Like she'd made peace with settling, but the ache never really left. And I was stuck. Too old to start over. Too young to give up. And completely invisible in a house full of people who didn't know how to look at me anymore. Except her. She saw me. Not as a child. Not as some guest. But as a man. A person. And every time she looked at me like that, something inside me shifted. Something I didn't want to admit was even there. But I couldn't unfeel it. And I couldn't unsee her. Not the way she tied her robe in the mornings. Not the way her fingers trembled slightly when she poured coffee. Not the way her voice softened when she asked, "How did you sleep?" Like the answer actually mattered. The tension was there. Low and quiet, like a song you can feel before you hear it. And we both acted like we didn't notice. But we did. We just didn't know what to do with it yet. The house stayed quiet. Rosemary and silence. Every day the same. Until the day, it wasn't. And that day. I still replay it in my head. Because that's the day everything we were pretending not to feel started to feel real. It was a Friday night. One of those slow, quiet ones where the air feels heavier than usual, and time stretches out like it's trying to remind you how empty everything really is. Dad had come home late again. Said something about back-to-back meetings and how he'd probably fall asleep halfway through the movie. He always did. But he insisted we do family night, like it meant something. Like the three of us sitting in the same room could magically stitch something together that was already unraveling. So we sat. Wine was poured. Naomi, my stepmom, picked the movie. Some old romantic drama from the early 2000s. The kind of movie that moves slow, but says a lot in the quiet. She curled up at one end of the couch, her legs tucked under a blanket. Dad sat in the middle, already halfway through his glass of red. I sat at the other end, trying not to let my eyes drift toward her more than they should. But they did. They always did. About 30 minutes in, Dad was out. Head tilted back. Gentle snore. Glass resting on his chest like he'd rehearsed it. She smiled when she noticed. Not a warm smile. More like the kind you give when you've stopped being surprised by disappointment. I reached over and quietly took the glass from him, setting it on the table. She nodded slightly, like she appreciated it. Like she appreciated me. The movie kept playing, but neither of us was really watching anymore. I could feel her eyes flicking toward me every so often. I was doing the same. Then, out of nowhere, she spoke. Her voice was low, almost like she didn't mean to say it out loud. Sometimes I wish someone would really see me. Just, see me. The words just hung there. Not heavy. Not dramatic. Just real. I didn't answer right away. I didn't know if I should. But something about the way she said it, so quiet, like she was confessing something, hit me harder than I expected. And I felt this. This rush. Protectiveness, maybe. But also something else. Something I didn't have a name for yet. She didn't say anything after that. Just stared at the screen like she hadn't dropped a bomb in the middle of the room. I turned to look at her. And she turned too. Our eyes met. She didn't look away. And I didn't either. There was this pause. A silence that said more than words ever could. In that second, it felt like the air between us changed. Like we were standing at the edge of something neither of us had meant to find. But now that we were there, we couldn't pretend we hadn't seen it. Her eyes softened, but there was something behind them. Something unspoken. Something aching. And for a second, I wondered if we were thinking the same thing. After that night, everything looked the same. Same house. Same couch. Same silence. But something inside me had shifted. It was small at first. Like the flicker of a match right before it catches. But once it lit, it didn't go out. I tried to shake it off, tell myself it was nothing. Just a weird moment. A slip. But the truth? That moment didn't feel like a mistake. It felt like a window into something we weren't supposed to touch, but couldn't look away from. I started noticing things I hadn't before. The way she'd hum softly when cooking. The way her hair caught the light in the mornings. The way her eyes lingered on me a second too long before looking away. And I hated myself for noticing. But I couldn't stop. Late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd replay it. That look. Her voice. The way she said she just wanted someone to see her. And I wanted to be that someone. But then the guilt would kick in. Hard. I'd think about my mom. How she used to sit at the kitchen table, waiting for Dad to come home. How she slowly stopped smiling. Stopped laughing. Stopped being. She left when I was 19. Told me she had nothing left to give to someone who couldn't give her anything back. And I didn't blame her. Still don't. But I never forgave my dad. He replaced her so quickly. Like she was a broken appliance. 1 month he was alone. The next, Naomi was in our lives. Smiling. Serving. Pretending everything was just fine. And I guess, a part of me hated him for that. For how easily he moved on. For how cold he stayed. For how he treated Naomi like she was just a new accessory to his already polished life. Maybe that's why I didn't back away. Maybe that's why I leaned in. Because I saw something in her that I couldn't ignore. Not just beauty. But pain. Loneliness. That quiet kind of sadness, the one that builds up over time until it starts spilling out in whispers. She deserved better. That's what I kept telling myself. She deserved to feel seen. To feel heard. To feel anything. And if I was the one giving her that, if I was the one listening, then maybe it wasn't so wrong. Maybe it was something she needed. That's how I justified it. I told myself I was protecting her. That I was just listening. Just being kind. But deep down, I knew. I knew I was already too far in. I started craving our conversations. The way she'd look up from her book and smile when I walked into the room. The way she'd ask about my day like it actually mattered. The way her hand would brush mine and stay there for just a second too long. And then it changed again. She started calling me love. Softly. Casually. Like it was nothing. Thanks for doing the dishes, love. Can you pass me that, love? Sleep well tonight, love. It was innocent. Until it wasn't. Because every time she said it, my chest tightened. My stomach turned. And all the guilt I was trying to bury came bubbling back up. I'd lie awake at night, torn apart inside. One part of me screaming to get out, leave the house, escape the tension. The other part, just wanting to hear her say my name again. It didn't help that Dad was never around. He started working later. Sleeping in his office. Some nights, I didn't even see him. And Naomi, she stopped pretending. Not with him. But with me. She'd sit closer. Touch my arm when she laughed. Lean her head on my shoulder when we watched TV. Every time she did, I told myself it didn't mean anything. That it was harmless. But my heart was racing. My thoughts were spiraling. And my dreams. They weren't innocent anymore. I didn't know what was happening. Didn't know how to stop it. Didn't even know if I wanted to. Because the truth? The part I'm ashamed to admit? It felt good. It felt right. Like maybe, in some twisted way. This was exactly where I was supposed to be. And that scared the hell out of me. It started with the little things. Late-night conversations in the kitchen when the world was asleep. She'd come down in her robe, barefoot, her hair slightly undone, looking more real than I'd ever seen her. We wouldn't say much at first. Just sit. Sip tea. Listen to the hum of the refrigerator. But slowly, the silence filled with words. Her words. She talked about how empty the house felt. How my father had become more like a roommate than a husband. How she sometimes forgot what her own laughter sounded like. I listened. Not because I had to, because I wanted to. Because something about her voice at night felt like a song meant only for me. Soft. Tired. Honest. Like a secret she only told the walls, and now, me. She started opening up more. About her past. About her dreams. About the way she used to imagine a different life. In another life, she said one night, her eyes locked on mine, you'd have been mine. I didn't breathe when she said it. I couldn't. The air between us was thick with something we never named, but both felt. And still, neither of us crossed the line. Not yet. But the line was moving. And we both knew it. She started brushing past me more often. Quick touches. Accidental nudges. But they stayed. Like static on skin. And they lingered in my mind long after she'd walked away. One morning, I caught her watching me. I was in the backyard, just standing there, lost in thought. When I turned, I saw her through the window, half hidden behind the curtain. Her eyes didn't flinch. She didn't smile. Just watched, like she was memorizing me. I couldn't shake the image. That quiet hunger in her eyes. Not desperate. Not demanding. Just aching. And then came the rain. It was one of those sudden spring storms. Loud. Heavy. Everything outside soaked in seconds. I had stepped out to grab something from the porch. Didn't expect her to follow. But there she was. Calling out, asking if I needed help. She stepped onto the slick tiles barefoot. And it happened fast, she slipped. I caught her before she hit the ground. Our bodies pressed. Her robe damp against my shirt. My hands gripping her waist. Her fingers clutched my arm. We didn't move. Didn't speak. The rain kept falling around us, cold and careless. But all I felt was her. Her breath was on my neck. Her face inches from mine. And when she looked up at me, it wasn't just gratitude. It was something deeper. Older. Like she'd been waiting for this moment long before I ever moved back in. I helped her inside. Grabbed a towel. She dried her hair in silence while I stood there, soaked to the bone, trying to steady my heartbeat. Then she looked at me. Straight into me. And said, soft, like she was saying it to herself, "You know what I wished for?" She stepped closer. You. That word. That one syllable. It cracked something open in me. Something I'd been trying to hold shut for weeks. And in that moment, I knew we weren't pretending anymore. It happened the night my father left for a 3-day business trip. He barely said goodbye. Just a nod and a reminder to lock up. Typical. The storm rolled in not long after he pulled out of the driveway. Thick, gray clouds swallowing the last of the daylight, thunder rumbling low like a warning. By the time night fell, rain was lashing against the windows and the wind howled like it was trying to peel the house apart. I was in the living room, half watching the fire crackle, letting the heat wash over me. And then she appeared, Naomi. Wrapped in a sweater too big for her. No makeup. Hair loose. Barefoot. She didn't say anything at first. Just sat down beside me. Close. Too close. But I didn't move. I couldn't. The fire flickered in her eyes. And the storm outside was nothing compared to the one building between us. She stared into the flames for a while. Then, quietly, like it hurt to say it, she whispered, "This marriage feels like a contract I never read. And now I'm stuck in the fine print." I turned to her. She didn't look at me. He doesn't talk to me. Doesn't touch me. I feel like I'm just here. A shadow in a house he wanted filled, not shared. Her voice cracked at the end. And my chest, it tightened. Because I knew that feeling. The slow erosion of being unseen. The slow death of connection. I wanted to tell her everything I was holding in. That I saw her. That I felt her. But I didn't get the words out. Because she turned her head. And looked at me like she had already read my thoughts. We didn't move for a long moment. The fire popping, the wind screaming outside. But all I could hear was her breathing. Then, she leaned in. Her lips met mine, tentative, trembling. Just for a second. But that second broke everything. Because I didn't pull away. I kissed her back. And it wasn't soft after that. It was desperate. Messy. Full of everything we'd been holding in for too long. Every look. Every touch. Every silent moment we pretended didn't mean anything. My hands found her waist. Her fingers tangled in my hair. We didn't speak. There was no room for words. She pulled back just long enough to breathe. Then stood up. Took my hand. Didn't ask. Didn't explain. Just led me down the hallway. Past my father's office. Past her bedroom. To mine. To the guest room. She closed the door behind us. Turned off the light. And in the dark, we let go. No pretending. No justifications. Just two people caught in something too powerful to stop. That night, we didn't speak. We just let our bodies say everything we weren't brave enough to admit. The next morning was cold. Not outside. Inside. In the air. In the silence. In the way she didn't look at me when I came into the kitchen. She was already dressed, moving around like nothing had happened. Making coffee, humming a little tune under her breath, like she did most mornings, only now, it sounded forced. Hollow. She didn't say good morning. Didn't even glance in my direction. I stood there, watching her back, waiting for something. A look. A smile. A word. Anything that said last night was real. But nothing came. She slid a mug across the counter toward me, without making eye contact, then turned and walked out of the room. That's when it hit me, whatever we were in the dark. In the daylight, we were strangers again. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sit still. I kept running through it all in my head, how it started, how it ended, what I should have done different. I told myself I wouldn't let it change me. But it already had. And I hated how much I missed her. How much I wanted to go back into that moment. To feel her close again. To lose myself in the way she touched me, like I was something she'd been aching for. But she was gone. Not literally. Just, different. Detached. Cold. My dad came back the next night. Walked through the door like he'd never left. Tossed his keys on the counter, kissed her cheek, barely noticed the tension hanging in the air like smoke. She played the part well. Smiled at his stories. Laughed at his dry jokes. Touched his arm at the right times. If you didn't know better, you'd think nothing had ever happened. But I knew better. Because I could see the way she moved around me now. Careful. Calculated. She stopped lingering in rooms we both shared. Stopped brushing against me in the hall. Stopped looking me in the eye. And when we were alone, she filled the space with noise. Pointless conversation. Empty smiles. A shield between us, built out of normalcy. It was like she was erasing it. Erasing me. And the worst part? She started overcompensating. Suddenly she was baking again. Wearing brighter colors. Playing music in the mornings. Fake happy. And I saw right through it. But what got me the most, what gutted me in this quiet, cruel way, was how she started wearing less perfume. She used to smell like rosemary and vanilla. It would cling to the room after she left, to the cushions, to my clothes. But now? Nothing. She didn't want me to remember. Didn't want me to feel it all over again every time I walked into a room. And still. I did. Even without the scent. Because the memory of her was burned in deeper than skin. It was in my chest. In my breath. In my guilt. I couldn't look at my dad without feeling sick. Couldn't sit at the same table without hearing her voice in the dark, you know what I wished for? You. And now? She acted like that wish never left her lips. But I hadn't forgotten. I couldn't. I was twisted up inside, wanting her, hating myself, and drowning in silence. She went on like nothing had changed. But everything had. I kept asking myself the same questions, over and over. Had she used me? Or had I used her? Did I fall into her arms because I cared? Or because I wanted to hurt the man who never really looked at either of us? I couldn't tell anymore. I couldn't separate the truth from the need. Some nights, I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, trying to retrace every step. Every glance. Every word. Every second that led us to that moment in the dark. And I still couldn't figure out who started it. Maybe it didn't matter. Maybe it was both of us. Or maybe it was just something waiting to happen the whole time. What hurt the most was the way she carried on. Like it had never happened. Like it meant nothing. But I knew better. You don't look at someone the way she looked at me that night and walk away unchanged. You don't say, "You," with tears in your voice and then pretend it was just a dream. But she did. She folded it up neatly and tucked it away like an old letter she never planned to read again. And I was left holding it. All of it. I started thinking, maybe she regretted it. Or maybe she didn't regret what we did, just that it stirred something in her she couldn't afford to feel. Maybe she was scared. Scared of what it meant. Scared that she wasn't as numb as she thought. And maybe that scared me too. I thought about telling my dad. 100 times. Sitting across from him at dinner, listening to him talk about work like we were colleagues, not family. I'd wonder what would happen if I just said it. Told him everything. Watched the world burn. But I didn't. Because no matter how angry I was at him, no matter how invisible he made both of us feel, he didn't deserve that. Or maybe he did. But I wasn't brave enough to be the one to destroy him. And deep down, I knew, saying it wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't make her come back to me. It wouldn't make what we shared feel any less forbidden. It would just turn something already broken into ash. So I stayed quiet. Let the silence stretch. Let the memory fester. Let her pretend. While I remembered every detail. The warmth of her breath. The way she said my name. The way she made me feel like, just for a moment, I was worth choosing. She made a wish. I said yes. But I'm the one who's been haunted by it ever since. Have you ever been torn between what's right and what your heart was screaming for? Have you ever stood at the edge of a moment you knew could ruin everything, and still stepped forward? Would you have done what I did? Or walked away? I'm not asking for pity. I'm not even asking for forgiveness. I just want to know, am I the only one? Because sometimes, loneliness doesn't come crashing in like a storm. It creeps. Quiet. Slow. Wearing a smile. Wearing the scent of rosemary. Wearing a soft voice that calls you love. If you've ever been there, if you've ever crossed a line, or almost did, or just thought about it long enough that it scared you, share your story in the comments. Let's talk. Let's be real. Let's talk about the lines we cross when we're desperate to feel seen. And if this story made you feel something, anything you weren't expecting, hit the like button. And don't forget to subscribe to Shocking Infidelity Saga. Because this isn't just another story. This is a place where truth gets messy, hearts get tangled, and the most perfect lives, they crack wide open. Sometimes love wears the face of the forbidden. But just because someone sees you, doesn't mean they're meant to hold you. Be careful what you wish for. Especially when someone else is willing to make it come true.